It's off exit 10, presented by Capital District Sport and Fitness.
Yeah, this has been better than I told you guys before we came on, but I'm a little guy, like 10 milligrams and I'm good. I'm happy and I'm feeling good. But last weekend we were in Michigan and I went to a dispensary down the road. I was like, you guys have any seltzers? And they're like, no, like we have tea. So I was like, yeah, I'll take the tea. And I'm making excuses, but she bagged them quick. I didn't even look at them. I got home. It was in like a little glass jar.
Like pours it out on the table. He's like, let's go.
You pour it into the glass and you look and you're like, this thing has 100 milligrams in it. I was like, okay, I got to pour some back right now.
It's probably because it was one of like the little tiny things?
Well, you look on the side. It's called Uncle Arnie's if you want to look it up. And
Is
if
it
you
like
look,
a syrup?
It's
I was
like
gonna say-
you pour out, there's a little measures on the side. So you got to pour out like an ounce at a time.
And you probably put it into something else to dilute it.
It's probably like a Lil Wayne mix. You got to put it in something.
You probably got to put it in some Dirty Sprite or something, you know?
I
Or some
actually
clean
did see
Sprite.
those for the first time when I was buying these today. And I was like, oh. And I looked and they said 100 milligrams. And I was like, oh, that's like a whole thing.
Yeah,
I need to bring something to mix that with.
It's got to be a concentrate. You're good. I'm just going to move this closer.
Oh,
to you.
thank you, Paul.
Thanks. Oh, hey.
That way you don't have to like yell and feel
Slide
like...
that pop filter down a little over the mic too. Yep.
Yeah. Sounded like a creaking up the stairs in the attic.
It did.
But yeah, meant to be consumed in multiples, which I'm
Yeah.
glad that I realized.
My guess is it was probably like a concentrated amount, and that you were supposed to put it into like water or like something like that.
Probably.
It's probably like, if you had a tea bag and you put the tea bag into the water, it's probably like that. That's probably what you were supposed to do, and you were just like, I'm going for it.
How many states is weed legal in now, Jay?
Ooh, good question.
Probably
Should be
20.
all, but
I think
probably a little less than half. I'm gonna check.
I
though.
think I was going to say it's in the 20s, I think.
it would just make sense for like just tax the shit out of it, and the state's gonna get some money, and people are happy. And
recreationally 24.
24,
Okay.
it'll climb. Some never will, I'm sure. Some like
Right.
down south states.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Let me see.
Speaking of making money on a completely different subject,
What?
you just made me think of this. On my ride in this morning, this is so off fucking topic.
Go.
They're going to be adding a tax to drive in Manhattan. So, like, if you get off the FDR and you drive into Manhattan, it's going to be like $15,
Yeah, it's $15.
which
Interesting.
is done in other countries already. So we're not the first country.
To what, go into a major city? They're
Like
just
they said
gonna-
that it's probably going to end up being other major cities too, but to control traffic
Congestion,
essentially
yeah.
in the city,
It makes sense to control traffic. I mean, traffic
and to make $1 billion in revenue.
Yeah.
Well,
a
that
lot of
too.
money.
And yeah, New York State has like no money, so
So
it's like
that, I think that's the big thing was the money, and then also to control like probably pollution and that. But their big thing is obviously the money. But
Yeah,
that
it's-
you bringing up like tax the shit out of it to make money made me think of that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like completely off, but
Have you always lived around here, Alaina?
I have. I grew up in Scotia Glenville. Yeah.
And then you were what, a St. Rose person?
I was a St. Rose person.
Dude,
yeah.
R.I.P.
Rest in peace to St. Rose. Does
Yeah.
that make you sad?
It makes me sad. It also makes me feel like nothing I did there is legitimate anymore.
That's an interesting point, but a good point.
Like, people are like, oh, where'd you go to school? Where'd you get your degree? It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, but there's other schools that are like that.
It's true.
Maybe not like that we can think of off the top of our head, but there's definitely other ones. Pierce was the last part of the last class.
His grad school for teaching.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because he just finished his grad school there in December.
Okay. Yeah,
And you were what, a soccer player there?
I was. Yeah.
That was your big sport growing up.
It was. It very much was. Since I was 5 years old, that was my life for a very long time.
It's like then when did you get into football? Because yeah, if people don't know who you are when they're listening, I mean, you play women's tackle football.
Yeah, it's crazy to like say that out loud still. It's also crazy to think like when I found out about it, it had already existed for like 13 years prior and I just knew nothing about it. That no one did.
When did you start with them?
This will be my 7th season playing.
And when is the season? Like when?
We're in the spring, so end of April through playoff start mid-June, and then the Super Bowl is in July.
So it probably runs like similar to like the other spring like pro leagues and whatnot.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's crazy how just you hadn't even have heard of it.
No, like I was not strictly soccer. I grew up playing just about every sport under the sun. Like my dad was a huge athlete. Like he just played every sport known to man, I think, and he's good at all of them, which is annoying. But so like I just kind of followed in his steps. So whatever he was doing, I was doing. Like church league softball, did it. Volleyball, did it. Like the whole nine, and I just fell in love with soccer. Basketball is his favorite sport. He still plays basketball. He was very upset when I chose soccer over basketball, but I don't know what it was. Neither of my parents played soccer ever or like knew really anything about it. So when I was 5 and I went out for a rec league and the coaches were like, she's good, like, and she's never played before. And they were like, no. And they're like, okay, does she want to stick with it? And I was like, sure, let's do it. And I just fell in love with it and never turned back.
Was travel a big thing, like AAU, when you were playing?
When I was older, it started to become a thing. I like guest played some AAU games growing up for basketball. Our high school team was not good, so I didn't play for our high school team because soccer was my number one sport anyway.
Right.
So travel soccer kind of took over that. So other sports in high school, I didn't want to join a team if I wasn't going to be able to make the full commitment. But I did other travel sports. So I played travel softball for a year. But soccer conflicts kind of made that not really possible either. So, but I was okay with it. Like all of our family vacations were my soccer tournaments. So
Right.
we'd go to like Rhode Island and just take an extra long weekend instead of going there and back. Or
Yeah.
we'd go down to Fort Lauderdale, Florida and go like for a full week instead of just for the weekend. So it was nice to be able to have soccer and use it as a way for our family to go travel and do things we wouldn't have done otherwise. So that was cool.
Yeah. So you didn't play other high school sports. It was just soccer, and then you did travel.
Yeah, I did some track to stay in shape for soccer and get speed and stuff like that. But outside of the meets, really, I didn't do a whole lot outside of
Yeah.
soccer.
The basketball's big here this weekend. The women's
Yes.
basketball.
Mhm.
Yes, it is. And it's almost more popular than the men's tournament this year, which
I
is
would say
crazy.
just from the talk of people in the gym, Paul, I would say there's way more talk, at least this week,
Yeah.
about the women's
Yeah,
tournament.
I mean, I think it's definitely this year is. I was explaining to somebody like the beginning of the women's tournament isn't that exciting because you don't get the upsets the way you do in the men's because
Right.
the talent level from like the top schools in men's and the bottom schools as men's is closer than it is for women's.
Right.
So, but then by the time you get to like the Sweet 16, now you're going to get some upsets. You're going to get those teams that like struggled maybe throughout the year but have a lot of talent, and then you'll see like that happen. But the women's tournament is like super exciting to watch this year, and last year was too. It's just getting more and more popular to watch it, which is only going to be good for the sport.
For sure. And it's interesting too. I didn't know this. We looked it up actually, that like the previous round isn't on a neutral site like the men's is. Like they still have home court advantage. So, like LSU, we were looking at the floor
Yeah.
and we were like, why does it say LSU all over the place if it's on a neutral site? And then we like looked it up, and
Yeah.
I guess for monetary reasons and financial reasons, they just make more money if it is at that home
'Cause they
court
said,
for one last round.
With Iowa too, they said that was Caitlin Clark's last home game.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, what? The men's tournament, they tried to play because it's broken up, like the top of that region. You got like it's broken up into 4 sections, and they try to play like whoever the best team is in that section. So like North Carolina played the 16, and then right below them was the 8 and 9. Those 4 teams will play at a site, but it was in Charlotte.
Yeah, right.
So
close
it's like
to that top
close to
team.
North Carolina, but it's not at UNC. So it gives them a little bit of a home court advantage, but not a full home court advantage.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Caitlin Clark thing's crazy. Like my wife doesn't watch sports, couldn't care less about it, and she always DM me on Instagram and just send me like reels to watch, and I never fucking watch them. And I get another DM from her, and I think it's like a fucking Miss Rachel reel or something, and it's hey, tag somebody to win Iowa tickets.
Mhm.
And there she is tagging me. I was like, Sam, did you mean to do this? She goes, yeah, I figured it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing to see her.
Yeah.
Then I looked up cost of tickets on a resale, and it's like over $1,000 a piece.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's wild.
I mean, I don't want to be the Debbie Downer on this. Definitely not the last time. It's the last time you get to see her at Iowa.
Right.
You'll
Right.
be able to spend $50 and go see her
Let's
play
see
in the WNBA
WNBA.
next year
Yep. True.
in Brooklyn against another one of the best college basketball players ever, Sabrina Ionescu.
Right.
So, like, that's what I'm going to do next year. Guaranteed, I'm going to take my niece to see it because she plays basketball, and I'm going to go.
That's smart.
Um,
yeah.
But,
it's
like,
true.
it's like I was going to go, and I was like, one, I'm not going to spend that much money without a guarantee that she's going to be there because they almost lost in the second round. And then I didn't want to spend that money to go to MVP Arena.
Right. Right.
I'll be honest.
Why is she the reason the women's tournament is so big this year?
I think she's one of them. I mean, between her and Angel Reese from last year, like
Right.
just that conflict in itself and the two of them battling back and forth and being as good as they are, I think that kind of sparked interest a lot. And now you have a lot of other really good women basketball players that are around them and
Mhm.
teams that have just naturally been very good for years that with the two of them in the spotlight, they don't get as much spotlight, but
Mhm.
they're still very good. And
Right.
when they are on the big stage, like now people will be watching in and they'll know who they are. So
And I think the social media era has kind of caught up a little bit with promoting women's sports, which has made it more prevalent. Because like I've had conversations with kids in here, and like Caitlin Clark's great, and like I don't want to diminish anything she's done, but they'll be like, "Oh, she's the greatest women's college basketball player." I'm like, Breanna Stewart was unbelievable.
Was she UConn?
She was
she's
UConn,
UConn.
and for people that don't know, she won 3 National Player of the Years. Caitlin Clark's got 1 this year. She won 4 Most Outstanding Players for the tournament and 4 national titles. Like, that's unreal. And, like, I think she's probably the greatest scorer for women's college basketball until we'll see what Juju Watkins does.
Right.
But, yeah, Caitlin Clark's awesome, and she's a big reason why the tournament's the way, like, as popular as it is. Like, she's a huge reason. It's like Steph Curry with the NBA. Like,
Right.
she's a driving force for that.
What do you watch the most sports-wise? Do you watch a lot?
Whatever's on, really, to be honest. During football season, I watch football a lot,
Mhm.
which makes sense.
Yeah.
But
Who's your team?
I'm a Giants fan, but that's just because of the friends that I grew up with. Like when I grew up, we didn't really watch sports in my household. My dad was very much, I would rather play it than watch it.
Right.
So that's just kind of how I grew up. I didn't have a favorite team growing up until all of my friends were Yankees fans and Giants fans. So then I became a Yankee fan and a Giant fan. It
Well,
just
you
kind of
chose
stuck.
one good team.
Yeah.
Yeah, the social media age, I couldn't imagine. Would you have socials in high school? Like just a Facebook?
I had a MySpace.
A MySpace, right? Yeah, we started with I never had a MySpace. Did you, Paul?
Oh, I had a MySpace. You know why? Because you could that was like where you could learn how to like code originally.
Yeah.
And then my favorite part was the music part. Like
Did you
I
have
would
one,
always
Jay?
put.
Yeah, you could have a profile song.
You could have a
Yeah.
profile song. I was
Yeah.
changing that shit every
Dude, I
every couple
loved it.
days. I was like, yo, this is my vibe today. This is today.
Yes.
The most traumatizing thing though for kids on that.
Top friends?
The top friends, hands down,
Yes.
hands down. That was definitely traumatizing.
Explain
for
it,
kids.
Paul, to the if kids are listening.
You had a like top 5 friends list that you literally put on your MySpace, which was previous to Facebook, for those of you that don't know, and it was public to everybody, for everybody to see. Everybody could see who your
Like
top
these
5 friends
are
were.
my 5
These are my 5
besties.
best
Yeah.
friends.
Fuck everybody else.
Yes.
And these 5.
And then you sitting there at home, you're like, wow, I thought I was like one of your best
Like,
friends. I'm not even in the top 5.
Imagine if you were like somebody's 3 or 4, then you look the next day and you're off the list.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
that
like you got in a
that would
fight with
happen.
Did that
someone,
happen
you
to
were
you
off
ever?
the top 5. Oh yeah, yeah. My top
Definitely.
5 definitely rotated.
My top 5, I don't think it rotated much. It's probably the same 5 now.
Yeah, I never had one. I went right to Facebook. But before Facebook, you had AIM, the
I
AIM
did.
Messenger.
I sure
man.
did.
That was the shit. That
Yeah.
is what you were. I feel like I was on all
How many
the
times?
time.
How many times did your parents yell at you? I got to use the phone. Get off the dial-up.
Oh gosh, can't
Yeah.
even count. Between my sister and I, my sister might have been on it more than I was, just because I was always out doing things. But yeah, and then we ended up with 2 computers, so we had 2 dial-ups going at the same time.
Oof.
We'd be like back to back from each other, talking to our
Jay,
friends.
find the dial-up noise. Remember,
yeah, I got
was
you.
everybody's the same?
I think
It had
so.
to be the same. It had to be the same for everybody. It couldn't be different.
But yeah, you couldn't. Yeah, you couldn't be on the phone and the internet at the same time.
No,
There was a time too where like if I remember where if somebody made a call, it would kick you off the internet.
Yes.
And you'd be like, I'd be like mid game. I'd be like, what the fuck just happened? Like, Ma, get off the phone.
Did you find it, Jay?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Oh,
is.
There it is.
I got PTSD.
Flashbacks.
Yeah, imagine you just want to like go on Instagram, but you have to go through this wall first to get there.
Yeah.
Just think about this, kids. You had to sit there for at least 5 minutes,
At
probably, listening to that,
Make sure your mom was off the phone. Then you had to click on that
just to get to Google.
just to get to Google.
And you had to watch it because if it disconnected or it didn't work for whatever reason, you had to reset it,
Oh, that was the
restart
worst.
it.
That was the worst. Walk away for 5 seconds. You go, gotta start
But
over.
Yep.
Alana, I wouldn't want to be a kid today with how social media is. Give me the dial-up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Because you
it's a lot.
you teach and coach.
I do.
I feel like it's just such an added stress to their life.
It's very much an added stress to their life. Most of the things that disciplinary wise we end up handling at the school come from outside of the school and are just brought into the school. Mostly because school is a safe place
Right.
for the kids to be able to handle any type of conflict that's going on outside. So if they have issues with another student, it usually starts on social media. And then we find out about it because it starts getting gossiped around school. And then we have the personnel and the means to be able to help them through those conflicts. So most of what we see today is kids who are using social media almost minute by minute. Like, it's hard for us to even get their phones out of their hands in classes, to be honest.
Yeah, how do you handle that as a teacher? And here I feel like just because it's a different environment, I don't know, their parents are paying so much, but most kids probably don't give a shit that their parents are paying so much. But yeah, we can keep the phones over here, Paul, for the most part.
Yeah, for the most part, there's times where, you know, we'll catch a kid, but like more times it's not that often in here. But
Yeah.
you're also not sitting at a desk. You're active in here, so
Right.
they have a distraction. It's like, you know, like we talked about it with like somebody that's got ADHD or something like that. Like, this isn't where you're gonna see the symptoms because they're doing something,
Yeah.
right? In school, you'll see the symptoms because they're sitting on their ass in a chair
Maybe
And-
bored with what they're doing.
and just
It's-
looking at this teacher like, you sound like Charlie Brown's teacher right now. That's all I got.
Yes. Wah, 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 wah,
Yeah, how do you
wah.
handle that
Yeah.
in a classroom? Because you don't want a kid on their phone. You want them to be present in class.
Yeah, fortunately, our school has a no cell phone policy no matter what.
You
So
gotta bag it when you go in the classroom.
you're supposed to. Like, I have a cell phone pocket, like, I don't know, thing
Yeah.
hanging up in the back of my classroom. And I have a little charging station underneath it. So, like, I give a little incentive. I'm like, hey, guys, bring your chargers in. Just put it in the pocket and you can charge it during class. And then your battery doesn't die throughout the day. And most of them do that. A lot of them, even though they're not supposed to have it out, they'll have it out either on their desk or in their pocket. And then we just have to quietly, like, walk by them and be like, can you put that away, please, in
Right.
your backpack or in your locker? And then most of the time, if we need to take it because it's still out or it's becoming an issue, they're usually really good about it. Like, they know that we don't care about what's going on within their phone socially. Like, that's not the purpose of us taking it. The purpose of it is so that they can focus in on what they're supposed to be focused in on. So
Right.
most of them are pretty good about just handing it over to us, and I'll put it in the pocket for them
What
and
do you-
then kind of go
What do you teach?
from there. I teach Spanish, 8th grade Spanish.
Dude,
Yeah.
do you know if a kid uses like a Google Translator or something?
Oh, instantly. Instantly. It's like the easiest thing as a foreign language teacher to determine.
What's your
And
tell? Like, what's your first look? And you're like, this is a Google Translate.
the biggest thing is that there's just vocabulary that we have never talked about once in our classroom, or grammar that's way above the level that they're supposed to be. And I'm like, what does this say? Okay, that's what I thought.
Does that happen often?
Not too much. The threat of getting a 0 and no chance to retake it is usually good enough.
Yeah.
But there's also enough native speakers throughout our district that if they really needed something or wanted to know how to say something that they don't have in our curriculum, they will just ask them and
Right.
they'll tell them. And then I'll know that they didn't get it from our stuff anyway. So, but that's the biggest tell is the vocab and grammar part. And I just make it easy for them. I just tell them if it's not on our vocab list and we haven't talked about it in class, just don't use it. Like 7th and 8th grade, it's an introductory class. So you're like kindergarten through 3rd grade in English equivalent. So I'm like, you guys get to pretend like you're in elementary school again. Like we listen to corny songs and we like write sentences that are like, the dog barks and the sky is blue and things like that. So like I just tell them. One of my coaches gave me very good advice when I was playing, and it was just kiss it. His keep it super simple. His is keep it simple stupid. But in class I say keep it super simple. And it's
probably more appropriate for them.
Yeah, a little bit.
We say
here I say keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah, that's what
I say it all the time.
Yeah.
But that's what it goes for when you really want to learn. Even us when we program and coach in here, it's like, let's keep it simple.
Yeah, there's times where I'm sitting here writing a program, I'm just like, hey, dummy, just keep it simple. Like stop overthinking it.
Yep. Yep.
Is us starting in 7th and 8th grade though, is it too late for people to really learn?
Way too late.
Like, what's the ideal, what's like the critical period where you feel like kids should start to be able to, because I took Spanish, 7th grade through the end of high school, and we had
You went all the way through?
Yeah, I didn't take it. I'll tell you what happened. My senior year, I decided to take it. I go into class, and I'm the only guy in class. And I go, fuck, man, I don't want this. I go right to the guidance counselor. I drop it. I change my whole schedule. And it was Mrs. Hannah. She had to be like 80 years old then, Paul, recall?
Yeah.
A little old lady. And then like the next day, I get called to the guidance counselor. And they're like, hey, Mrs. Hannah came in all upset that you dropped your class. And I was like, what the fuck? And I put it back on my schedule.
That sounds exactly something would happen for you, Mike. That sounds exactly like that.
And then today, we were in the gym, and my dad was here doing work painting on the bathroom, so we had a bunch of tools and stuff out. And then I looked, and there was a drill charger plugged in the back of the gym. I was like, I don't think this is his. And then another worker from outside came in who only spoke Spanish and asked me something, and I was like, I'm so sorry, I only speak English. And this all happened in 10 seconds. Whipped out his phone, talked into his phone, spun it around to me, and I was like, oh, perfect, like that.
I had to do that when I worked in New York City sometimes, especially with because we would get a lot of Asian people in our store, like whether I don't know what their nationality necessarily was, but then I would ask them, and they'd be able to tell me that. But then they wouldn't, and I'd have to use Google Translate for a lot of things. But it worked.
So helpful.
Yes.
It was super.
Yes.
I sold a lot of GNC memberships that way. I can tell you that. I sold a lot of GNC memberships that way because I'd read it out exactly everything they got, and they were like, and I was like, awesome.
It is definitely helpful.
When should kids start, you feel like?
Well, so studies have shown that when you hit maturity age, so usually anywhere from like 11 till like 13 range is when the linguistic part of your brain has fully developed.
Interesting.
So you can no longer learn a language in the same way you learned your native language. And then you have to learn any other language from there on based off of the language you already know. So prior to that would be phenomenal. Like the reason why most countries have kids starting to learn English in kindergarten is because that you can learn it like your native language. So
explain that more, though. You mean if we learn it past this, we hit puberty or mature age, 11 to 13, we're constantly referencing English to try to learn our versus what? Versus what's the other way?
They're just both separated in your brain, and
your
you're
brain's
just
just
observing
soaking
both
it
of
in.
them in. Yeah.
Yeah. Why doesn't our country do it younger?
Good
No,
question.
yeah.
It's the age-old question.
Right.
Nobody really knows. Other than, I mean, obviously you would have to spend more money to expand.
Yeah, more teachers.
Something like that. But, I mean, some districts start in elementary school, like late elementary school, like 5th grade. Some start in 6th grade. Others 7th. My district starts in 8th. So it's all dependent. But I have worked in a couple of schools like Albany, elementary. They started 5th grade when I was in college, so I did like a Hispanic tutoring program, it was called. So it was kind of like a work study. And I tutored kids in elementary school in Albany who didn't know any English. And so they were struggling in school. And I had a 1st grader and a 5th grader. They were sisters. And both of them just absorbed English like it was nothing. Like, I'll never forget, Alaina was her name, and she was in 1st grade, and she would be so excited. She would like raise her hand to answer every question, and then she'd look at me because she had no clue what the teacher said or asked, but she didn't care. She just wanted to participate. And just working with her in like 3 months, she went from not knowing any English to being in the advanced English class.
Wow.
Because her brain just absorbed all of it.
Yeah, like that would be an impossible feat, or nearly impossible for a 7th grader, for an 8th grader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you gotta. Do you
Especially
ever?
a 7th or 8th grade boy.
Geez, that's a whole nother thing. I find that the hardest group to coach. Do you to teach or no?
8th grade, yes. Mostly like 7th grade, not as much, because 7th grade they're still really excited. It's all very new and they want to learn it a little bit more. Come 8th grade, like they're a little too cool for school at that point, and so they're just doing it to get the grade and move on for the most part.
And by 8th grade, it's already just a class that they add to history and
Right.
math. Whereas at 7th grade, it's like, oh, this is something new.
Right.
Let me try it. And then you're like, wow, this is the same as all my other classes. I don't want to do this.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think the feeling, the somebody feeling too cool for school is what makes me struggle, though, because when we have a kid that has like lower self-esteem, low confidence, is quiet, I'm like, let's go, let's build this kid up.
Yep.
There's nothing better than building this kid up, watching him come in here, being more social, having the parents say like, dude, his or her confidence is so much better. Like, that's most rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I feel like plays to my personality of being kind and listening and wanting other people like to make them feel good. And then you get an 8th grade boy who thinks he's the shit. And I go, oh, like, how can I be nice to you right now? Like, I feel like I got to bring you down a couple pegs, but you can't. And it's tough. I'm like, I'm just struggling right now.
I think it's also tough because, like, obviously we grew up in a different era of coaching.
Yeah.
So, like, I think there are obviously positives to some of the old school way of coaching, and there are some negatives.
What's that? Just being a little bit more stern?
Just being a little bit more stern, or like a little bit more like a disciplinarian,
Yeah.
like, because there is a benefit to that in sport and whatnot. But there's also, like, you can't be too far on that end.
Correct.
Like, you have to have empathy and you have to be able to relate to the kid. But I think for us, part of it is like, I just want to sit there and be like, stop being a little pussy. But I can't say that. I have to find a way to say that without
Yes.
saying that. So then I'm in my head, I'm like, how can I say this without saying it? So but like, it's a good thing that we do that because
because then you are doing the kid a disservice because it could hit them later on at some point.
Like, we want to make sure, like, hey, I don't want you to say the wrong thing to the wrong kid at school when you're in 9th grade and get punched in the face.
Yeah, or you just don't develop a work ethic and you get cut from your school team.
Yeah.
And you're like, I could have maybe had a little influence on this and caught it earlier on.
Right. So there's a lot of things like, and again, for us, it's like we go through this filter in our head. All right, well, I can't say that because that's what our coaches would have said to us. But I want to say that in some way. So, like, it's just an eternal battle almost.
Yeah. What do you coach? What sports?
I coach soccer. Yep, I'm the girls varsity soccer coach. I've been doing that for a long time now. Over 13 years, I want to say. What do you mean, 2023?
24 and 24. We're in
20,
2024.
we're in 24
We're in
now.
2024.
Thank you. We're in 24 now. So 2010, I started. So, yeah.
So this past year was your 13th
14
year,
years,
or 14th year, actually, if you started in 2010.
Do you feel like if you looked at yourself coaching in 2010, you'd be like, what was I doing?
I don't think so. Only because when I started coaching with and for who was then, I was at Shalma at that time. So who was then the Shalma varsity coach and pretty much started all of the Rotterdam Soccer Club. So Angelo Cachera, who has been around the soccer world forever. And he kind of took me under his wing right away. So my first real coaching, I had someone that I knew what they were doing, knew the sport, and could build a program and build myself into someone that could carry on once he left, which was his goal for me. I started coaching junior varsity when he was the varsity coach. And after the first year, he was like, all right, so you're ready to take over for varsity, right? And I was like, well, I only coached 1 year ever at the high school and in general. And then we ended up winning states. So I got to assist him my first year coaching. I got to be his varsity assistant and help take them through regionals and states and win the state championship, which was awesome. And then he was like, I want to do that again. And I was like, it's yours. Like, this is your program. Like, when you're ready, you tell me. And so then we went back to the Final Four again for states. This my second year assisting him, and ended up losing in the semifinals that year. But so I just had someone who was very good at what he did.
Yeah, I think having a good mentor like that is so important early on.
Yeah.
Because I feel like early on, it's like if you're in school or you're younger and you're a kid or you're a daughter and you're a baby, you just mimic people. And it's like being around a mentor. It's like I may not fully grasp everything I should be doing, but like you kind of pick up on things that this other person may be doing.
Exactly.
And doing well. This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Bombas. Bombas makes my favorite pair of socks, hands down, alongside the most comfortable and durable underwear, t-shirts, and other everyday clothing staples. Their wide variety of sock lengths, colors, and patterns have you covered, whether you're working out, going out, or lounging at home. I love their merino wool blend athletic ankle sock for long days of coaching at CDSF and getting in workouts myself. And if I'm at home doing work around the house, you better believe I'm wearing my Bombas Sunday slippers with their comfy memory foam midsole. And when you buy from Bombas, you're also buying for those in need. For every item you purchase, Bombas donates 1 item to people in overnight shelters, transitional living facilities, rehab centers, Title I schools, and medical service professionals. Take my word, if you want to upgrade your sock game to one that's more comfortable, durable, fashionable, and charitable, head over to the Bombas link in this episode's description to browse their full collection of everyday wear, and don't forget to use code CDSF20 for 20% off your first order. The supplement industry is like the Wild West. The lack of regulations mean the supplements you purchase may not even contain the ingredients listed on the label, which is why I get my daily vitamins and supplements from Thorne. Thorne vitamins and supplements are made without compromise. Quality ingredients ensure your body optimally absorbs and digests your daily supplements, while in-house and third-party testing ensure you're getting exactly what you paid for. Thorne offers a variety of health tests reviewed by board-certified physicians that evaluate your lifestyle, gut health, sleep, stress hormones, and metabolic markers to determine which vitamins and supplements may be most effective in helping you feel and perform better throughout the day. For college and professional athletes, Thorne has NSF-certified supplements that make sure you won't get pop positive on a drug test. Whether you're an athlete, professional, parent, grandparent, or weekend warrior, Thorne's selection of high-quality supplements can help improve your quality of life. Switch to Thorne's high-quality and extensively tested supplements today at thorne.com/u/CDSF. That's thorne.com/u/CDSF.
Yeah, I mean, if you just think about with us and here in coaching, like obviously, you know, we had mentors as adults, but then there's definitely aspects of like coaches we had growing up that we had that were great coaches that we use in here.
Yeah.
Like we may not realize it, and then you're like, that's definitely something like this coach would have done or that coach would have done.
Yeah, they had an influence on you.
So it's just like taking all those bits and pieces and applying it to your coaching style to make sure that you're going to get the most out of every kid that you want to get the most out of, and also not be too much of a hard ass.
Right. I feel like that's kind of where I have to find that balance, because I just am a hard ass. Like my parents were on me, my coaches were on me. Like I just kind of, it's ingrained in me.
Well,
I don't know any other way. So
and you also played at a higher level, so it's like you kind of know the idea of like this is what it takes to get there type thing. So you know, it's like, and even though not every kid's going to get there, you know, there's expectations that you have in your mind that X, Y, and Z doesn't always add up.
And there are definitely things too, like for myself as an athlete, that I know I could have done better or been more consistent with or changed so that I could have been a better athlete. And had I known then what I know now, I would do some things differently. And that's kind of why I think I push my players and my students so much, because I don't want them to go back and be like, I wish I did this more, or I regret not doing that, or whatever. So I do push very hard,
Mhm.
and I have very high expectations, but I hope that they know it's out of love for the most part, and that that's coming from a place of care, and it's coming from a place where I want them to be successful. And if I don't feel like there are other people around them that are giving that to them or holding them to those
Right.
standards, then I'll be that person,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Do you feel like too it takes a blend because we just we just hear in here like we're not around school sports. We'll go to games, but like we just live in our bubble in here. That we'll hear kids complain about coaches, and I'm just like you have to filter in your head like is this person really a bad coach? Are they just too much of a disciplinary? Are they disciplinary in a good way, but their communication style isn't great where the kid grasps what they're trying to do? Or are they a disciplinary but don't foster like a good, healthy community? Like how much you have to work to keep girls getting along with each other and like working towards a common thing?
That's the biggest battle that I find right now. I don't know what the reason for that is. I think some of it is because the team aspect is not as high a priority at this moment in time. Like everything is stats and Instagram and highlights. And I mean, you have the trade portal and all of those things now. And even in the NFL, when free agency became a thing, like all of those things where the players could stand out for themselves within a team sport. And I think a lot of it has kind of the team aspect of it has kind of become secondary and the individual is now primary. So there are a lot of egos or a lot of disagreements primarily because they all want to be that person, like be
Right.
that star or be the leader or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I saw a really good clip from LeBron and JJ Redick's new podcast that they did, and LeBron was talking about when guys get into an ISO situation, and he's like, everybody's like, "Oh, I'm in my bag now."
Which is one-on-one situation.
Yes, a one-on-one situation in
okay.
basketball, and everybody's quote unquote in their bag now because they're like, "Oh, I'm going to take this guy one-on-one," and he's like, "It's still a 5-on-5 game," and he's like, "Even if you have that mismatch, it's not always the best play to take them one-on-one." He's like, it's still a 5-on-5 game. And that's coming from the guy that literally has like every freaking record. Like every
Right.
one. And it's like kids don't, I think the younger generation, like you said, with social media and everything.
Social media I feel like is a big player
It's a big
in
player in that. Where they're just like, okay, I gotta get my highlights, I gotta get this, I
Right.
gotta do that so that way I can get noticed. Whereas they're gonna notice that, but then they're gonna come watch you
How
Right.
much was
and they'll be different.
How much was getting to college soccer, getting a scholarship in your head when you were younger and playing?
It wasn't really.
See, with people our age, like this is the difference, I think. 'Cause I
Yeah.
feel the same way.
Mhm.
And I just think too, like the opportunities at the next level are so much more prevalent and well known.
Yes.
Whereas when I was growing up, like neither of my parents went to college to play soccer or any sport. Like neither of them went to a 4-year college completely.
Yeah, I
and
feel
my
like we-
sister went the trade route. So I was the first one who was really going to college and not just going to college, but trying to be a college athlete. And that was very hard to navigate for a family who kind of keeps to themselves, is in a town in upstate New York that not many people know that. And most of my recruiting came from my travel soccer because I got to go to showcases in Florida and in Canada and in Rhode Island and Maine and all these other states that I wouldn't be seen in New York.
Right.
And
In
people aren't
Scotia
coming.
Glenville.
Right. And people aren't coming to our high school games to scout, you know?
Right.
So I think for me, I limited myself, but it wasn't because I was lazy in the application process or because I wasn't sure that's what I wanted to do. It's just because I didn't really know. I didn't know the process. I didn't know how it was supposed to go. I didn't know when to start the process and all of those things. And so I kind of pigeonholed myself into what I knew and what I was confident in and what I knew was going to fulfill the check boxes. Like, does it have the degree I want? Yes. Can I play soccer there? Yes. Like, will I be able to do other things outside of that? Yes. And so For me, it was easy to make that decision to go to St. Rose, but it was because I didn't really give myself many other options. And it's just because I just didn't know. But now, like, it's all over the place. And now with NIL deals, it's even bigger.
I think that's a very good point, is that like it being more prevalent,
Right.
and like
Well,
almost more popular to do it.
You're just more aware.
Right.
College roster now is probably the same, or if not very similar to what a college roster was, and you name the sport 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But nobody saw the 20 girls or guys in the college roster posting on their Instagram all year. And yeah, it's just way more prevalent.
Right. Like I never thought about, like I did a little bit because I had a couple colleges come for like recruiting for football, and I was just like, but I'm like, it's Division III. Like in my head, you know, at that time it's like, oh, Division III. Like I'm not going to the NFL from Division III. So do I really want to do it? And I still thought about it when I got to school, and I decided not to play. But it's like one of those things. If I grew up now, I probably would have been. That would have been something on my mind a little bit more. It was like, oh, I can play at the next level.
Yeah. Also, I get it. Kids are happy and like stoked, but I want to know what the turnaround time is of when one kid in their head or signs on paper or verbally commits, and how quick they turn over the stupid graphic post.
Oh, yeah.
It's fast.
Yeah. It is very fast.
Yeah, and part of it is like catching likes on those. People probably like how that makes them feel.
Well, and if I'm sure with this whole social media thing that we're talking about is like the more engagement you have on your social media when you get to college, the more likely you are to get an NIL deal, and the more likely you are to make some money.
Sure.
So I can't fault the kid for that.
No.
But at the same time, it's like you got to focus on the main thing a lot of the time. The main thing is like getting your reps in.
Yeah.
And whatnot. So
how much does travel impact like the high school thing, you think, not being like such a team focus or being like a main priority?
It's really hard to say, only because high school sports are so different now than they used to be. It used to be that you used your travel season as your specific sport season, and you played high school sports to either stay in shape, play with your friends, keep up with your skills outside of your travel season. But now, because there are so many athletes that play one specific sport and they play it year round and they play travel and they play at high levels, if you go into a high school team and you don't have a whole handful of girls that play travel soccer in the off season at a high level, you can't compete.
Right.
And that's not fun. And then they don't want to do it anymore.
Right.
And it makes it very difficult to not just push like the team aspect of it, but it makes it difficult for them to stay motivated to want to get better.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, like, you can't make huge gains in your sport in the 3 months that you have in high school in that season. Like, you're in season and you're playing 2 to 3 times a week games, which means you really only have 2 days a week to get better. So you are coming in at whatever skill level you have, and you're going to get a little better.
Right.
But if you're not fit or you're not at the high level that other teams are coming in at, then it's hard to really even push them to want to play.
Don't you
in their
think,
high
too,
school
you
sport.
have to choose the time as to when maybe doing another sport, just those baseline skills can carry over and still make me better, versus like, okay, now's the time I gotta go all in on like this set of skills that my sport requires?
So it's interesting because I've always had mixed feelings about playing multiple sports at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I think right now, as long as you understand your body and what your body is telling you.
You're saying two
it's
in the same
fine.
season right
Correct.
now. Oh, yes. I mean, that's tough.
But even then, like, outside of that, we have kids that when we play varsity soccer, when you get to the varsity level, right, like, you're playing to win. So at the varsity level, I always tell the girls, like, you should not be playing any other sport. Like, I will push you. I will tax you.
You're
like,
saying just during this season.
during
just during
this
my
season, like,
yes.
you should not be playing anything
I
else.
can agree with that, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of girls who play travel in addition to high school, and some of their age brackets, they have tournaments in the fall during our season. So, like, they'll go away on a weekend and they'll play soccer like 3 to 6 games, depending on how they do. And then they come back on Monday, and I'm thinking they're fully rested because I didn't know they had this tournament going on. And so I push them on Monday, and they're like exhausted. And then I find out that it's because they had practice on Sunday, or they were at a tournament that weekend or whatever. And sometimes it's for other sports. So like sometimes it is for preseason basketball. And it's a lot of it is just the breakdown of their body. Like it doesn't really affect their ability to learn the sport and play the sport. It's more so they are just higher risk for injury because their body's fatigued coming in, and they just aren't yet experienced enough to understand what their body is telling them when they need to slow down or push the pause button.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and here we've become, you don't have a pure 3 months of an off season with the kid ever because they're doing their main sport at some point all year round. Yeah, so Paul, we're like more of just like managers of this kid, managers of their workload.
I can name the only sports right now that I can think of off the top of my head where we'll get a break for them to be able to do like a true off-season program.
Football?
100% if you're just a football player.
Right.
Like right now, like I have a kid in here. He was here tonight. Like he only plays football. He's been in an off-season since Shen season ended. Right. And it's been awesome because he's put on a lot of size, a lot of weight, put up some good numbers and all that. And is getting stronger and faster and everything. And then I would say in the winter for lacrosse. Because they're going to be playing in the fall a lot of the times. They're going to be playing in the spring, and they're going to be playing in the summer. But in the winter, a lot of times, they're just doing, like, light winter workouts. Like, they're not doing anything crazy where they're, like, doing a tournament and playing 6 games over a weekend. They might go be playing at Afram's on a Friday night. Because I went there, and they were playing on Afram's on a Friday night before my flag football game. And I literally saw half our gym there, I feel like. But it's not super intense. It's like a 30, 40, 35-minute game. It's a smaller field. It's less players, and they're just working on their skills essentially during that time. So I would say like lacrosse in the winter is that one, and then if somebody only plays football,
right? But
basketball, soccer, baseball, softball, volleyball, every other sport, it's like they're constantly year round.
Yeah, I think that's like a place like us, you're a non-biased third party, and you just have to understand the full picture of a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Because, they're lifting in school, they have travel, they have high school. It's like, okay, I need them to do stuff in here, but I can't overdo certain things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's also true. Like, when you have kids who play multiple sports, they always have, like, that number one that, like, they really, truly...
Almost always.
Gravitate to.
Mm-hmm.
It's my favorite when I ask a kid, what's your favorite sport? I don't know what I'm playing right now.
But it's rare that you
It's rare, but when I get that, I'm so happy.
But we all had that, too.
Yeah.
You were soccer, Paul. You were?
I mean...
Yeah, you were close with football, baseball, right?
I would have said up until 5th grade, I was 100% basketball. Basketball was my favorite sport because I didn't play football yet. And then it was football. Like, football was always my number one, but football was my favorite thing to watch. It was my favorite thing to play. Like... and whatnot, but baseball was definitely a very close. When I was in season for baseball, I wasn't thinking about football. When I was in season for basketball, I wasn't thinking about football. I think that's the difference. Is I got a kid who's in season and maybe they're a baseball player. That's their number one sport. They're in season for football, but they're worried about their swing for baseball. Their mechanics for pitching. I'm like, dude, you got plenty of time. Let's not worry about that. Like,
yeah, I think the hard part is letting them know that it's okay to not be able to do it all.
Yeah.
Like, they have a hard time telling the number 2 or 3 sport coaches that they're not number one. And I get it, because there's some coaches that have a hard time accepting that, because especially if you have a player who's, like, very good, and then they break the news to you that it's not my number one. If I have a conflict, I'm not going to be here. But as a coach, like, I'd much rather you tell me that so I can find a role for you on our team that is going to be conducive to what you can handle and what you can commit to, versus just not making any commitment at all. So either you don't do it at all or you try to do it all. And that's when you run into trouble with multiple sports.
And I think going off of what you just said too is like being scared that like you tell that coach and now you don't play because that's not your number one sport, or the next season you get cut because that's not your number one sport. I think that's part of it for kids too, depending on obviously the school they go to, things like that. And then it just gives them that anxiety essentially. And now they're like, do they really like the sport or do they not like the sport that they're playing? That's their number two sport. And then eventually they might just quit anyway.
Are you happy that you went to a smaller high school?
Yes. We knew every single person in our class, in our grade, and I actually lucked out that our overall graduating class was very good. Like, I don't think there were many people who did not get along enough to be able to, like, be in the same rooms together or, like, hang out together or whatever. So for us, I think my graduating class was around 210, give or take, and we knew everyone, but we still had our own friends groups. So it was nice because I was on a soccer team with a whole bunch of girls that, like, I didn't hang out with outside of soccer. I was the only one that, like, I didn't have another person in my close friends group that was with them, but I still felt close with all of them because we were a smaller school. And so they knew who I was before walking in, and I knew who they were before walking in, and it wasn't just me walking into a whole bunch of people I've never seen before.
Yeah.
It's cool that girls flag football is a thing now, though.
Oh, I'm so excited. Yeah, it's huge.
I've been so excited for since I found out it was last year was the first year or the year before downstate.
I don't know.
I can't remember. It was either last year or the year before where they did it in Long Island, Buffalo area, and I think down in the city area.
Yeah, I think it was last year. I think you're right.
Yeah, that when I saw that instantly got me. I was like, oh, because my niece is in 7th grade now, and I'm like, she likes football. I was like, maybe she'll play.
Yeah, I immediately went to my athletic director, and I was like, can we do that? He shot me down pretty quick, but it was the first thing. I do actually have a soccer coach who I coach against at another school who messaged me and asked if I could come over for some practices and make some plays and kind of help him out a little bit since he knows that I'm big into football and he's not so much.
You play a little bit,
Right, a little.
So how'd you get into tackle football?
Well, it started with flag. When I was done playing soccer in college, I started just playing co-ed sports with my friends. So co-ed soccer, obviously, was my number one. But I played co-ed softball and volleyball a time or two and things like that. So my softball team, they needed a girl for playoffs or they were going to have to forfeit. And I didn't even know there were flag leagues at the time, so I didn't know it existed. But I was a tomboy growing up, so I always liked sports in general. And I remember in 7th, might have been 8th grade, my friend Bree and I in gym class, we almost got sent to the principal's office because we had a segregated football class and the girls were playing on one side and the boys were playing on the other, and she and I just joined the boys. And because I played soccer with the boys growing up, so they were all my friends anyway, and we were competitive. So we jumped in, and our phys ed teacher told us if we didn't go play with the girls that we would have to go to the principal's office. So we fought him a few times until he looked like he was serious, and then we kind of meandered over there. So I always played football when it was happening, recess and in gym class and things like that. But then when they asked me to play in flag, they were like, you don't have to do anything. They didn't know that I knew how to play football, that I could use my hands, I was athletic. I didn't just play soccer and softball. Mm-hmm. So they were like, you can just stand there if you want. And I was like, all right, well, let's do it. Let's see what it's all about. So I jumped in, and at that point, our plays were numbers with lined drawings on a piece of paper, and our quarterback would just be like, all right, you are number 1, you're number 2, you're number 3, you're number 4, you're number 5. And I was like, all right, I can read routes on a paper. I got this. And I just started playing, and no one knew who I was, so I just started giggling every time that they were amazed that I could catch a ball and run. And I was like, yes, this is fun.
I don't just use my feet.
Right, exactly. So we ended up joining a tournament. I believe it was Josh Keys was a wide receiver.
Kais. We went to high school with Kais.
Okay, so originally For
Chatham.
the Browns?
Oh yeah.
No.
Originally
Texans,
no,
Falcons,
Buccaneers first.
Buccaneers
Bucks,
first.
okay.
Yes.
I was like, it was orange and black, so I knew
right.
it was one of those
He's
two.
right there too.
But
Okay.
he did play on the Browns at one point.
Okay, so he was doing like a charity tournament, flag tournament. So like we put in a random.
is for
Wait a
Leah.
minute.
This is
Time
for
out. Was this
Leah.
at Chatham High School?
Maybe. Yeah, possibly.
Yeah. So this
I was there. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
yeah, this fundraiser was for one of my friends growing up who ended up getting diagnosed with cancer. That's
Okay.
what it was for. Yeah. Wow.
I
Small
still have
world.
this T-shirt. I
Yeah,
still wear it
I
sometimes.
still have the T-shirt too. We might have to coordinate this one day.
Did you play against each other?
please.
No, because I was in the men's
Okay.
bracket.
Oh,
yeah,
this-
yeah,
oh,
I
this
was
split
in,
it.
we
Okay.
we won. We were the Chatham team that, like, all the guys from Chatham that played in my league, and then we won the Kai's tournament.
That actually sounds familiar because there was a high school co-ed team. They were not good, but there was a co-ed high school team
Yeah.
that I remember we played against.
Yep.
Okay.
Because we played in the championship against the high school boys because they made it to the championship, and then they did not win that game. We were more experienced in flag football.
Yeah. So it was just like a bunch of us from different teams from flag that had gotten together. And I didn't know it at the time, but New York Knockout had, who I play for now for tackle, had put in like an off-season flag team just to stay sharp and practice and recruit.
Mhm.
And we ended up playing them, and we beat them quite handily. I think we won the whole thing, if I remember correctly. And I was walking out of the parking lot, and one of my students at the time at Chalmont, and her dad, she was also ended up being a soccer player for me a couple years later when I needed a goalie, and I knew that she was athletic and begged her to play for me. But he came up to me and he was like, I didn't know that you were as good at football as you were soccer. And I was like, well, I guess I didn't really know that either. So then he told me that they had a tackle team, and he asked me if I'd be interested. And at the time I was like, I don't know if I'm really interested. And one of the girls that was playing with us was on the team. So like I knew at that point that it existed, but I didn't really know anything about it other than that one of my students' fathers was like the head of it and that it existed. So, in fact, one of the girl that I played with, Liz, she was a running back. She was little, so like they do that now. Like most of the running backs now are shorter
And they're just like shifty.
right, like they're shifty, and like the linemen all say like we can't see you. So like the D line, they can't see the running back
So you play
until
in
they
tackle.
hit the hole.
It's 11, same as what
Yeah.
men's game is.
Yep. And so when I was coaching at Chalmont, and I had begged not just their older daughter to play soccer for me and be a goalie, but then also their younger daughter to be a goalie and play soccer for me, they kind of turned to me and they were like, all right, enough is enough. You have both of our girls agreeing to play for you. You have to at least agree to try out and like give it a try. And I was like, all right, I can do that. I'll hold up my end of the bargain. And I did. Fell in love with it. Haven't turned back since. And here we are.
And then you played on the national team too.
I did, yeah. So
What year was that?
this was 2022.
Okay.
Trying to think how many summers ago we are now. 2 summers ago.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is this the shirt that you have?
That is the shirt I have.
Thought so.
So you guys are both champs, or
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the same
Yes.
tournament. That's wild.
Yes.
What a small world. I'm like, I have to find this. I was trying to see if I could find like pictures of like the teams that won,
Okay.
but I couldn't find that because it's not on anything. But I found the Facebook page for like the actual Facebook page for the event and everything, because it was a camp they did for kids, and then they did the tournament afterwards.
Maybe that's why I have the shirt, because we won. Because our jerseys were pink and black.
Yeah, we were purple. I'm pretty sure.
what a small world. But where was Worlds when you played?
Finland. Yeah, so I tried out for the national team. My coach at Knockout, who recruited me, he, from my rookie season, like day one, he was like, you're going to be asked to be on the national team one day. And I like didn't know what he was talking about.
How did you know what positions to play? They throw you on one?
Yeah, I mean, flag, you're just all wide receivers.
Mhm.
So, like, I naturally was wide receiver. And then defensively, like, you're just playing either man or zone. So I would always be in the flat or man up on someone. So defensively, like, corner, I already had an idea of how to play that. And I knew what a zone was and things of that nature. So they knew it could kick. So obviously, kicking and punting, which I guess prior to me walking in was more backwards than forward. So like, I guess I was a breath of fresh air coming in. I was like, well, I can at least handle that. Like, I don't know really the difference between kicking a soccer ball and a football, but I know for a fact I can make it go forward. And then wide receiver, they already knew that I could run routes because they watched me play flag against them. So they kind of threw me in as a wide receiver. And then they asked if I had ever played safety before. And I hadn't, but I was a sweeper in soccer, and I was a defender in soccer, and I was a center midfielder in soccer. So, like,
It's the same thing.
it's the same thing. So they threw me in as a free safety, and that's kind of where I just stuck. So
That's my favorite position to play on defense in football because it's the same as playing center field.
center field, yeah.
It's literally, you're just back there, the ball goes up, you're like, yeah, here we go. You either get to hit somebody or go get the ball.
And I think that's where playing multiple sports is really important, I think, for younger kids, because there are so many similarities between things. Like, I think about it, and soccer, defending in soccer, pretty much the same, but like having vision for the field,
Right.
being able to see things like passes and things of that nature. Like, just, I know as a wide receiver what my quarterback can see and what they're feeling, because on a soccer field as a center midfielder, like, it's the same type of feeling and the same job, essentially. Like, you have the same role. In the outfield, playing softball, same thing. Like you were saying, playing safety is like playing center field. So, like, I played in the outfield. So, like, I already had,
You know how to track a ball.
I know how to track a ball. I can catch with a ball coming down at my head. And heading in soccer is the same thing. So, like, I teach my kids to head, like, pretend that there's a ball coming down, and so we'll toss a ball at them, and they have to catch it, like, right where they're supposed to head it, because it's the same motion. Things like basketball, just defending in soccer is very similar to defending in basketball. And a lot of the movements that you do are the same. And so I make reference to lots of sports when I coach soccer. And it's because I can see by playing all these different sports how they all connect with one another and how similar they are. So in football, for me, transitioning from soccer to football wasn't really a thing, because I didn't just play soccer.
This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Anchor and the all-new Anchor Pro, crafted to endure the most high-performance workouts without the high cost and space requirements of a standard cable machine. Named the best portable cable machine by Men's Health Home Gym Awards, Anchor provides the full functionality of a cable machine in one small space-saving unit. Designed with user-friendliness in mind, Anchor can simply be attached to any squat rack or placed on any wall in your home gym using its intuitive sliding track mount. With up to 65 pounds of resistance, Anchor is built for high speed and controlled exercises alike, from cable presses and rows to chops and lifts. The Anchor has been a game changer for us here at CDSF, and now you can enjoy the same professional quality cable machine in your own home gym by heading over to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today. Get all the benefits of a cable machine without the high cost and installation fees. Enjoy the portable luxury and space-saving performance of Anchor today by going to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 at checkout. That's anchortraining.com, promo code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today. This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Drink Alchemy. Fatigue and brain fog affect us all, destroying everything we pursue. Whether as an athlete, artist, creator, or entrepreneur, our mind holds the key to performing optimally. By combining the most potent organic nootropics found in nature, Drink Alchemy delivers sustainable boost to creativity, memory, energy, and focus in one epic beverage. Stop pumping your body full of excessive amounts of caffeine and unknown proprietary blends from other energy drinks, and get clean energy from Drink Alchemy's natural nootropics like lion's mane, L-theanine, and caffeine from green tea. Used by Olympians, D1 athletes, MMA fighters, and entrepreneurs, Drink Alchemy has become a huge part of my daily routine, making sure I'm functioning optimally during long days of coaching athletes, running CDSF, and getting in quality workouts myself. So do yourself a favor and ditch the energy drinks loaded with caffeine, other stimulants, and who knows what else, and head over to drinkalchemy.com today. Live with your mind unbound and save 10% off your order by using code CDSF at checkout. That's drinkalchemy.com, promo code CDSF for 10% off your order today. Did you pick up on kicking the football right away, like getting the right spin or kicking it where you need to, or did that take some time?
Kicking it long was never an issue. Like, that was always pretty easy. But being a defender in soccer, like, I took our goal kicks for most of it. Like, I could kick a ball past midfield in soccer on a goal kick. So, like, I took all of our set pieces and things like that for all of my teams. So I could already loft a ball. And so teeing it up for me was like nice. But it just made it easier for me because it wasn't on the ground anymore. So that part of it, punting took a little bit. Like, I can punt, like I can teach my goalkeepers how to punt, but I wasn't a goalie, you know? So like that part of it,
and the ball's not
a little bit more
completely round.
No.
So you drop it wrong,
Right.
and it's not going to go off your foot right.
No, and sometimes it really hurts.
Yes.
More of like the onside kick things. Because I had a good soccer background, it was once I figured out how to kick a football in that way, then the mechanics of it were easier. But there's still times where when I was at national training camp before we went to Finland, my special teams coach, one of the best special teams coaches in the world, he taught me, like, for the first time ever, how to actually kick and punt, like the fundamentals of it. Up until that point, I was just a soccer player who figured out how to do this. It's like people who just golf for fun. Like, you don't necessarily know all of the mechanics of it and exactly how to do it so you can do it consistently. You just kind of do it for feel, and once you figure it out enough that it's working, you just keep
you don't
doing
suck
that.
too much.
Right, exactly.
What's the farthest field goal you can kick?
I've only attempted up to 45-yard field goal, and I've made 45-yard field goals, but I haven't actually pushed beyond that.
45's impressive, though.
45's tough. That's a long ways. People don't realize how far 45 yards are until you stand there and you go, wow, I got to kick it that far?
I think I could squib it like 10, maybe.
Yeah.
I've kicked a 30-yarder in my life. That's the farthest I've ever kicked. That was probably in high school.
Dude, the pressure of a kicker, like watching Bucker or somebody, you're like, dude, they just lock right in, man.
Oh, it's real. I equate it to taking a PK in soccer.
I hate NFL kickers, by the way,
Because why?
because they have one job. Just kick the football accurately. That's it.
But there's wind.
Just kick it accurately. Not when it's inside.
It's very much like golf.
When they miss inside, that's when I get really mad. I'm like,
that's true.
there's nothing. If it's short, like if they're kicking like a 60-yard field goal and they miss it short, that's different.
Yeah.
But when you're kicking like a 30-yard field goal and you are getting paid millions of dollars to do it, and you miss it, or an extra point, and I'm like, what are you doing? What's going on here? But I'm sorry.
The
sidebar.
issue really is because it is a lot like golf, where like if one like half of a centimeter off, and all of a sudden like you're slicing a ball or whatever, you know, it's the same mechanics. Like, so it's the same consistency, and it's really just like you have to be like a robot. Like, emotionally, mentally, physically, you have to be like a robot. It has to be mechanical every time, and the power just has to naturally come. Like, you can't try to force power on it, or all your mechanics go out the window, and then you end up missing it.
That's like golf.
I think Alaina should pull the what the Cowboys kicker did.
What did he
and
do?
just go try out. He was like an IT guy that played pro soccer, and then him and his wife were watching TV, and she was like, they were watching kickers miss, and she's like, I think you can do that. So he literally practiced for like 2 years, and then the Cowboys never have a consistent kicker. They have a different kicker every year, I feel like, but they signed him, and then he missed. I was at the game, missed the extra point, and I was like, here we go, and then made every field goal. After that, he set the record for rookie, like 31 straight field goals he made. And it was like watching a machine just like walk up. And I was like, yep, that's going in. every time. I was like, this is great.
Yeah, and when you get the mechanics of it, it really does just flow. Like it just does. It
So
flows. You don't have to
there's
force
your
anything.
future, Colin. You could be an NFL kicker, maybe.
Well,
Hey,
isn't there flag in the Olympics now, women's, in 2028?
there will be. Yes.
How do you try out for that? Would you try out for that?
A flag is, I feel like, a lot younger than tackle is right now. It's like I'm heading towards the end of
Right.
my like semi-pro professional career, and there are just, because it's so big, there are just so many young,
Right.
fast, talented, like 20-year-olds who realistically, like, if I dedicated my entire world to training and getting myself right and ready for it, I could maybe do it. But because I have a full-time job and other responsibilities and things of that nature, that and injuries that I'm coming back from, realistically, I don't know that the flag option at that level would be open.
Especially 4 years from now, too. Like,
Right.
Good
if
point.
it was like this year and you weren't recovering from an injury,
Exactly.
it might be more realistic. But like the fact that it's 4 years, that's another 4 years of us getting older, unfortunately, of training, of dedicating your time, like you said. And who knows at that point where you're going to be, like,
Right.
it's in 2028.
Was this the first big injury that you've had playing soccer and football and everything else?
I shattered my collarbone playing playing flag. I was at practice for a charity game. I did up until, I want to say 2 years ago, maybe it might have been COVID. The Alzheimer's Association did a flag football charity event, Blondes versus Brunettes, every year. And I found out about it through flag and women that played in flag. So I have done
think
that.
Is that how they really did the teams?
Yeah.
Bonds and
I
Brunettes?
think one of our other clients played in that.
Oh, probs.
You know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you are correct.
I am. She did, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and she did. If we're thinking of the same person,
yeah,
yes,
I'm
she
sure
did.
we all are.
So that was my first major injury. Dr. Phelan wasn't sure that he could fix it. It had come to literally like a sharpened pencil point and was centimeters from sticking out of my skin, and I didn't really know that because urgent care didn't disclose that information to me. They just told me I needed to get it looked at ASAP. And so I did. And it's not where most people break their clavicle. They usually break their clavicle mid-section, and mine was where it meets my shoulder bone
Oh, dude.
and my shoulder. So I have a plate. I have 11 screws, and the like anchor is just a big screw that's screwed down into my shoulder muscle so that it is stuck there. So that was my biggest injury. This one is my most complicated injury and longest lasting injury. Like collarbone, it was a bone. So after 8 months, like it was healed and I was back to playing flag and doing other things. This one I did a number, and it's going to take longer than that to really get back to 100.
And how long ago was the collarbone too?
That was 2013, so about 10 years ago.
So
Give or take.
10 years younger of being able to recover probably a little bit
Right.
faster,
Yeah.
But then also the nature of both injuries. One is, like you said, bone, and one is not.
Right.
And it's
Yes.
just a lot more issues going on.
A lot more. And it does a lot more.
Yeah.
With
So-
what I do.
With what we all do.
Right?
To be
Right? Just in
honest.
general, yeah.
Just in general.
Yeah.
Your knees are do a little bit more for you than your shoulder does a lot of the time.
True.
Yeah, is tackle, girls lay down hits in tackle?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. Some monsters. There's always injuries in all sports. You're prone to it. But thank goodness you have pads and a helmet, because otherwise it'd be rough for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've seen like spit fly out involuntarily from like mouths just because your head whips back so fast. And some tanks can really hit you. Like when like women play line, like there are women who are like 300 plus pounds and like 6'2" 2, 3
Mm-hmm.
that are just beasts. And sometimes in the women's world, they also are the running back or a halfback. So they end up with the ball in their hand and they have a full tank of steam. They're just gonna barrel roll anyone that's in their way.
I'm going low.
Yeah.
Like first time you got hit, were you like, whoa? And then you're like, okay, I got it. This is what it's gonna be.
Yeah, fortunately, we practice hitting in practice before you actually get it in the game. And like, luckily for me, when we just happened to match up in our tackle line for like first hits as my rookie season.
You got the biggest girl on the team?
Not the biggest, but it was our coach's wife who has been playing the most experienced, and she's the most beastly woman that I've ever met in my entire life. Like, she's so feminine, but she is also like, don't get in her way and don't make her mad. Like, I would never dare. And she can lay a hit, man. And I remember my very first time, they were like, all right, she's coming. I'm like, all right, here we go. She just took me right out, like, onto a mat. So, like, it was safe. But, yeah, that first hit from her, I was like, all right, this is what it feels like to get hit like that. And this is what it feels like to land flat on my back. All right, got that out of the way.
I don't know if I could take a hit right now. It's been a long time since I've had to take a hit in football. Long time. I don't know if I could do it. I could do it, but I don't know what my reaction would be afterwards. I'd be like, what just happened?
I do it. It's good to get scared every once in a while, but I would get destroyed.
I will take a hit in football before I get behind the plate as a catcher. That is a fact.
Ooh, yeah.
There was Kimbo Slice videos online, Jay, back in the day, where they would pay somebody to just take like a run right at each other hit from Kimbo Slice, and it'd be like little nerdy white college guys, and he would just like destroy them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I know exactly.
I don't
I
remember
watched a
those.
lot of Kimbo Slice, dude.
Yeah,
He was entertaining.
Do you remember him?
No.
It was like an early YouTube guy, like a Street Fighter guy, who ended up competing in. It wasn't the UFC, I think, but some other.
No, he did
division.
compete.
Or was it UFC?
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that. But then I just think this is what I think of. Jay, you found it?
I found a TikTok that says, let's see.
If you can't find it, it's fine. I just remember him.
No,
like,
I've got something.
lighting
I just
people
had
up.
to solve a puzzle so they know
Don't-
not
don't
Oh,
worry.
you got to do a
I
capture
got,
thing.
I got the
gotta
YouTube right here.
rotate a chihuahua's head so it fits in its ears.
This is to prove you're not a robot over there.
Yeah.
Good
pass.
job, Jay.
Thanks.
Don't worry, Jay. I got money talks.
Kimbo Slice tackle for $100.
Yeah. This dude is
Hold on.
mentally preparing right now.
They
Spin it so we can see. Or, Alaina, can you see it over there?
I'm trying to get. Oh, here we go.
Destroy
So they
Jordan,
do like
right?
a little pass,
they loft it up
They
in
loft
the
it
air.
up to him,
so
and
the
then-
wideout's looking up.
and he
then
just gets destroyed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
For $100
Flag.
bucks.
That's
Paul, let me
so
see it.
funny.
They pad the guy up too.
Yeah.
Is he in a green shirt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, here
Yeah.
it is. Here it is. Here it is.
Terrible route, terrible throw, and definitely
Destroyed.
pass interference.
They put like a little block, another defender on him early on, chip him a little bit at the line. He's like, I'm going.
And he's dead on the ground.
And down.
Jay, you've never seen that?
No, I.
Oh, that's when I think of big hits. That's the only thing I think of.
Yeah, I think my first game hit, I had made a catch on like a fly route, and I was heading like down the sideline, but I was looking over my right shoulder, so I was looking over towards the sideline to catch the ball, and as soon as I caught it, like someone was right there, and I just remember my feet left my body, like it was just I was launched and I was just down I went, held onto it, and I was like, oh, give me a second.
Yep.
Lost my breath for half a second, and then up I went and shook it off, and that was it. But
What's the kickoff rules that got changed in the NFL, Paul?
So did you watch any like the XFL, UFL, or anything like that?
I did. It's the first time that I had seen what the new now NFL rules are going to be, and when they mentioned that they were changing them and they said that they were going to how they were going to break it down, I was like, oh, so like the XFL rules,
Yeah.
like that was fun to watch.
It's similar to that. There's some slight differences, but like in general, basically the receiving team and the kicking team, the guys that are running down the field and blocking, are going to line up closer together, and they can't move until the ball either hits the ground or is caught.
Instead
So-
of when the kicker kicks it.
Right. So it's reducing the high speed
Mm.
collisions that cause a lot of the major injuries that happen in the NFL. while also some of the other rules in it, like the kicker has to kick it between the goal line and the 20. If they kick it into the end zone, the touchback now comes back to the 30. If they kick it short of the 20, it goes to the 40. So it's incentivizing them to have more returns in the game, which was a very exciting play for us growing up. Like I will never forget watching Devin Hester return the opening kickoff of the Super Bowl for a touchdown, and every single person's camera in the goddamn stadium was going off, and I'm just like, that just happened, and they lost. But yeah, like those plays don't happen now. And I was talking to a client who watches football in here, and you notice it because you watch football, the amount of returns that don't happen now. And he was like, I think I noticed that without even realizing it. And I was like, yeah. And this is going to make it so 90% of them are returned, which is then going to create a whole, basically re-bring in the kick returner as a position.
So you don't have touchbacks all the time.
So there won't be, like right now, it doesn't, for the team kicking off, it's like, I'm just going to kick it out of the end zone. Or if I'm receiving it and I catch it in the end zone, I'm not going to run it out unless I'm really freaking good at it, because if I get tackled before the 25, that was pointless.
Right.
Yeah. And I think I read, too, that they can't call for a fair catch
Yes,
either.
But they didn't used to be able to. And then like last year or the year before, they added that in.
Yeah.
On a kickoff.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
safety things. Because it was like, okay, if they fair caught it, it would be like they'd go out to the 25. But now you can't fair catch it. So you have to return it.
So it's like increasing the excitement around it and the ability to make plays in that and make something happen, while also decreasing the possibility for injury, which was the whole reason for the initial changes
Yes.
to begin with.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I'm a fan.
I'm a fan of it.
excited.
I'm a fan of it. I think they should. There's other rules I think they should change. Like their overtime rules should be college rules,
Agreed.
and they should get rid of the onside kick, and you go for a 4th and 20 play.
The college rules are fun 'cause you're just going back and forth.
The college rules, it starts out, you get the first 2 overtimes, you start at the 25, 1st and 10, I believe. And then the second, in the first overtime, you can go for 1 or go for 2. In the second overtime, you have to go for 2. And then if it goes to a third overtime, then they alternate 2-point conversion plays. So you're running 1 play, because the whole point, all of the things the NFL says they want to do is to reduce injuries and reduce the risk of injury. Well, that's directly going to, because you're going to have significantly less plays than you would in a timed overtime.
Right.
So, like, that's hire me, NFL. Hire me as your rules guy.
Well, and too, because it is overtime, like that's where fatigue happens and more likely chance of injury and those types of things as well. So
Yeah. How long have you been a vegan for?
about 6 to 7 years, about the same time. I played 1 year my rookie season on Knockout, and I was not vegan, and then from then on I had been. So for about the last 6 years.
What made you want to switch?
Well, I didn't even know what a vegan was or that it existed until I met my current boyfriend. So we ended up playing on a flag team together, which is how we first met. And our friends on our team kind of set us up. I didn't know that. He did. He was aware. I was not aware. And we, like, the first time that we went out to the bar as a team, he, like, ordered sweet potato fries, and the rest of us all got, like, our normal stuff. I got a buffalo chicken wrap, like, and fries. So, they kind of were teasing him about what he was eating, but I didn't know anything about it because I didn't even know really anything about him. So when we started dating and, like, individually, like, just the two of us started hanging out, I asked him about it, and I asked him why they were making fun of him, what it was. Like, I had cousins that were vegetarian and pescatarian, but, like, I'd never heard of the term vegan before. Like, our diet was Wendy's, in and out of sports stuff, and every weekend, like, a home-cooked meal. Like, that was what we did. So, like, diets weren't really a thing for me.
Yeah.
Nutrition wasn't really a thing for me growing up. So when he told me what it was, my mom is a huge foodie. My sister and my dad are super picky, but my mom and I, like, we were always open to trying lots of different things. So when we first started dating, I had mentioned that, like, all right, if we go out to a restaurant, what would you normally eat here? Like, one, I want to be respectful because I am starting to understand a little bit about why you are a vegan. But then the second part of it was I had never tried it before. So like I wanted to try it. And everything that I had was good and was filling. And I was like, this is a whole nother world. And I didn't even know about it. So then it really just kind of naturally happened in that I started to learn a little bit more about it, read up about it. Like the China study had just come out and Game Changers was coming out as a documentary and things like that. And so started watching documentaries, started reading the China study and different books about veganism and what it was all about. And I was like, oh, well, let me get this straight. I can do everything that I want to do. I don't have to stop doing anything. Like, it's not going to hinder me athletically. It's not going to hinder me in like my everyday life. And there are options now that never existed before that like can make this easier of a transition as well. And I don't have to harm anyone, like any living being, to do so.
See, the animal thing is what gets me, the treatment of these animals, or it's just like the hormones is pumped in, you're stuffed into these small barns. Food Inc. maybe is a documentary.
Yeah, that's one.
Yeah, that one. But it's like, even what it takes to be like a free-range chicken is like you get like a 10 square feet or something, and only be outside like X amount of minutes a day.
Exactly. And I've just always loved animals growing up. So, like, once I realized that I was eating things without really, truly thinking about what I was eating. Like, I didn't think about the fact that I was eating chicken and a chicken would have to die in order for me to eat that. Like, that disconnect was
We're also
always
disconnected from that
I wish I thought
society today.
Yeah. So
I wish I thought that way. I know that motherfucker's getting killed, and it still doesn't faze me.
I just think if you're, for hunter and gatherers back in the day, you just
I think that's where my brain goes to. Is like
right.
I'm such a Neanderthal in that way.
and that's kind of where like I just kind of had that like thought where I was like, all right, so if I don't have to harm the animals that I love, like when I say I love something, like I then don't want to be someone who turns around and is okay with murdering it. Like that doesn't seem okay.
That's fair. That's a fair point.
So I was like, if I don't have to, then why would I? Why should I? Like that would just make me a hypocrite. That would make me hypocritical to say I love animals and I can do everything that I ever want to do as a human without killing them, but I'm going to anyway. And so that was kind of the turning point for me where I realized that if that's the case, then just put in the work to figure it out initially. And
a lot of it's so delicious to me,
It
Paul.
is. I mean,
But
listen, I get it.
a lot of it is seasoning, which I also didn't really recognize.
I'm a condiments guy too.
Listen, I'm a condiments guy, but I'm also a texture guy. And if the texture's, that's why I don't like I don't eat like any seafood.
Yeah,
that's real. The texture thing is real. Like tofu, it has to be very much like fried and not the texture of what tofu normally is in order for me
how
to
much
be able to have that.
How much do you feel like you still have to be aware to like make sure you're getting in enough protein and enough calories to like support the
time?
training? Yeah.
But I feel like that didn't change, like growing up an athlete. When I got to the collegiate level, then like I was aware of like my diet and what I was eating and all of those things. And then when I was done playing soccer and I started gaining a whole lot of weight because I was no longer like running 10 miles a day like you do in soccer, I kind of had to rethink what I was eating and my eating habits because I always grew up like I had a fast metabolism and I was always active. So I ate whatever I wanted whenever I wanted to. And then I stopped playing soccer in college and started drinking in college. And all of a sudden I was like, wow, I need to kind of figure this out. And so I would put myself on like random diets. So like I would cut things out from time to time when I felt like I was getting to a point as an athlete that I needed to get my act back together and become more disciplined in that. So I like went periods of time where like I wasn't eating red meat and was fine with it. I went periods of time where like I was having an egg every day for breakfast and like making sure that I wasn't eating as much then after that and whatever. So the omitting things from my diet wasn't really a struggle for me. It was more of paying attention to what I was eating if it wasn't exactly what I was holding in my hand and looking at. Like if a plum is a plum is a plum. Like
Right.
there's nothing added to it. When you get into like boxed things and processed things and all that kind of stuff, like there's a lot of things you look at it and you're like, oh, wait, there's milk in this?
Well,
Why
and
is there
just-
milk in this?
And just food marketing is so crazy and tricky.
Yeah. Like who knew Oreos were vegan? Like there's random things that people eat on a regular basis that are vegan, but you wouldn't think it because if there's cream in the middle of an Oreo, you would think that that has something to do with milk, but it really doesn't.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, even probably though for you, like things, do you go as far as like things and the way they're cooked, like cooked in butters and cooked in?
Yeah. So, I mean, the best thing now is that there's literally a substitute for pretty much everything.
Yeah.
They're not all great. Like,
Right.
I don't think I found a seafood substitute that I've really liked,
Right.
but I never really ate seafood that often for me to be missing it now, you
Right.
know? And a lot of it's trial and error.
Yeah. I mean,
You try something and it's good and you stick with that brand or stick with that
Right.
item or whatever it is.
my
and
niece did that with cheese.
yeah.
She has a lot of food allergies, so like I can relate to like all those things and like trying different
There's
things.
some okay ones out there, like the cheese
I
substitutes.
she had to like she cause
Jay, yeah? Have you found any good ones or no?
Yeah, there's some that are good.
A
There's
lot of
some-
them,
there's
a lot
some
of them
that are-
suck.
There's
but
some, yeah, a lot of them melt in a way that's really disgusting.
Yeah, like that was her problem. She would want to make like a vegan like gluten-free pizza.
Yeah.
And then like they would get like they'd buy like 4 different brands of cheese to figure it out, and then they finally found one that like actually melted the way it should for like pizza. And
Right.
it, like I tried it, I was like, this is actually not bad. I'll eat it.
how
I'm
many
gonna eat
games?
real pizza though too.
How many games are in a regular season with knockout?
It used to be 8. Since COVID, it's dropped to 6 and hasn't gone back yet. As players, we all advocate for 2 more games, but we're at 6 for now.
Is that like a financial side of things more, or
Yes.
yeah,
That's the biggest part is the finances because we pay to play.
yeah,
So teams have to fund their way to everywhere. So in the Northeast, we're lucky. There are actually a lot of women's tackle teams in our league in our area, so we don't have to travel as far as others do. But if you're in an area where there's only a couple of teams, then you have to travel out of state just for regular season games, let alone playoffs and the Super Bowl and all those things. So cost is a big part of it. Yeah.
I figured that would be a big thing that would determine how many games, where your games are, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And the league fees are usually added into our team fees. But your team fees are all going to be different. One, depending on the level that your team is. D1, there's only like 6 or 8 teams, I think, in D1. So like they're traveling, like they're literally flying for half of their regular season games or more than half of their regular season games. But they also get more sponsors and things like that. Like the Boston Renegades, they are the winningest D1 team thus far. I think they just won their 3rd or 4th national championship in a row. And the Patriots jet is like provided to them to get them to their Super Bowl games. Like
They were a big deal when I was in Boston. Like
Yeah.
people knew who they were.
Yeah, they're in the Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, which is really cool.
That's
so,
pretty sweet.
Yeah, so their costs are going to be astronomical in comparison to ours, but they do a lot more, and they have a lot more that they need to do really, and they have to have a higher level program. Like they have to have better equipment, and they have to have better facilities and things like that because that's who they are. Like that's what they're a pro team, like a true pro team, versus like we are a semi-pro team. We're Division 3, so we are up and coming.
Yeah.
Like we are a very skilled D3 team, but our facility costs are not going to be
Right.
what their facility costs are. Our travel costs aren't going to be the same as their travel costs. So as much as we're paying now for us at D3, like it's 3 times that at the other levels. It's a lot.
That's crazy.
When you played on the U.S. team, you guys won?
We did, yeah. We won gold in Finland. It was the four-peat, actually, and I didn't even know that it had existed.
Alaina just showed
for
up
that.
and she's like, "Hey, I'm here to play."
Yeah, it was really cool. They had said when I was at trials that it was the biggest show out for trials that they had ever had up to that point because it had just grown astronomically from their previous 4 years
Yeah.
to then we had 150 women competing for spots, 50 spots on the team.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it was wild. It was a wild experience, and it was really cool. One, to be able to go to Finland, which I wouldn't have done otherwise, for sure.
Yeah.
But just to meet all of these women from other countries, like that play football,
Yeah, that's so
and
cool.
tackle football, and
That's
they have
awesome.
leagues.
Like, who did
and,
you play? What countries did you play when you were there?
Germany. We played Great Britain. We actually played them twice. We were supposed to play. Well, Mexico's team didn't make it in time. Something happened with the head of their foundation and their tickets that they ended up having to pay their own tickets like last minute, and the airway gave away all of their tickets because whoever was supposed to coordinate
I
dropped
didn't
the
know that
ball.
I didn't know that when a flight is booked, they're negotiating people off the plane. When we flew last weekend, our flight was overbooked, and each ticket got up to $2,000 to get you off. And I was like, Sam, if we
And
didn't
that's
have,
and that's also lowballing
and I was like, if we didn't have our daughter right now,
Yeah.
like our tickets are gone.
because they start you lower than what they're
Jay,
supposed
you would
to
have given
offer.
yours up at 1,000. They
I
start.
have.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, I
What's the
have.
highest you went to?
I got a $800 voucher. And
What-
I had to wait
Wow.
for like 5 hours in the airport. It's like,
What-
got nothing to do.
What made you say, "Oh, let's see if she's gonna bump it to 9 or then 10? Where you just said, I'll go at 8.
Yeah, no, 8 sounded good. 8's like two round trip tickets to wherever I want.
They ran this up to 2 apiece, and we
Wow.
were like, "Oh my god!"
If you didn't have Sia there,
Damn. Is that a voucher or money?
It was either a voucher or like gift cards, Target gift cards, Amazon,
Yeah.
but like
whatever, I'll use
whatever,
that.
sure.
I go to Target twice a week.
Yeah,
I'll take a 4K.
$2,000
I'll
is
take
$2,000.
a 4K at Target.
Um,
Yeah, I didn't know they did that.
Yeah, so they lost.
Who'd
They
you play
lost
in the
their tickets.
final?
We ended up playing Great Britain in the final. Yeah. We were losing at halftime. It was like a huge deal because U.S. hadn't even had close games, I guess, up to this past World Games. And so it was kind of like a shock that I think it was 14-10 that we were down walking in. And the big difference right now between American football, just in general, on both the guys and the women's side, and the rest of the world with American football, is that there's just so much more experience.
Right.
We've had it for so much longer. So our coaching staffs, our offense coordinators, our defensive coordinators, halftime adjustments are tenfold for us, way different than any other country at this point because we just have more knowledge going in and ability to use what they know, even if it's not part of the X's and O's game plan, walking in to be able to change what you're doing so that you can end up exploiting whatever it is that you need to for the second half to get the advantage. And that was something that we noticed in most of our games overseas, was that there really weren't that many halftime adjustments for the other countries. Like what they were doing in the first half was pretty much what they were doing in the second half, and we could change up anything that we needed to.
well, it's similar if you think back with basketball. Like we, as the United States, never lost in basketball, even with college kids. And then when we lost with college kids, we said, "Oh, guess what? Pro guys can play."
Yeah.
So then the dream team came, and then we didn't lose anything for a long time. And it's just because we were so much further ahead. And then this guy named Michael Jordan kind of made basketball more global.
Right.
And now you've seen Spain, and Lithuania is going to be good because they have this guy named Luka Doncic. Like it's just like you see it expand, and that's why I love that flag is going to be in the Olympics, both men's and women's. Because like, let's be honest, the U.S. is going to win the men's one by a long shot. Like it's not even going to be close. Sounds like the women's could be a little closer because they've been playing like pro like
well, and the
tackle
women
football.
lost last year.
Oh, they did.
Mexico won last year.
So
yeah.
it sounds like the women's one could be more competitive at the flag level for the Olympics
Yeah.
than the men's. Listen, there's nobody catching Tyreek Hill in flag football. Nobody.
Not yet. No.
Nobody's catching him.
If they
And if you
let-
let Patrick Mahomes throw him the ball again, it's not going to happen.
Oh, if they let NFL guys play, yeah,
It's over.
It's
Yeah.
over.
It's
Oh, yeah.
over. Nobody's ever going to compete with us for the first 5 Olympics. I'll say 20 years because that'd be 5 Olympics.
Right.
It would take at least that many.
I kind of think it's the same way in soccer too, where like the men struggle because soccer came to the U.S. way after it was already all over
Right.
the world and popular, whereas for the women it was the opposite.
Yeah.
Women weren't allowed to play sports in most other countries before the U.S. women started playing
Right.
sports, and so we as U.S. women developed the women's game
Right.
to what it is today, and then it spread to the world versus the other way around. So like the women are dominant.
Mhm.
Well, have been. Obviously, the world's caught up.
Yep.
But they had been dominant for so long because they were the start of the movement.
Right.
Whereas the men, they were the last to the party,
Right.
really.
Yeah. That makes I never even thought about that with like soccer, but that makes a lot of sense. That like why the U.S. women's is so much better or more competitive than the men's U.S. team is because the women were able to play here.
Yeah,
Right.
and our men are opting into others. Our best athletes are opting into other sports. They're football players. They're basketball players. If we didn't have those two as prominent sports, imagine take some of your. I bet some of your really good NBA guys or football guys.
You
come
take away
ball out with soccer.
football. I think you would have a lot more because I mean football's a fall sport. Soccer's
Right.
Yeah,
technically a
good
fall
point.
sport. Like I
Yep.
think you take away that. A lot of basketball guys, they can't do shit with their feet.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
true. It's so true.
Like listen, LeBron's a great athlete. I don't think he'd be a good soccer player. He'd be a great goalie, phenomenal goalie.
yeah. Yes.
But the rest of it, I'm not sure.
I think that's one of the main reasons why I love playing women's tackle football here, is because I know it started here,
Mhm.
and we are the front runners, and we're the ones to beat. So like, if I can be one of those pioneers, those front runners to take it to the world, and even though flag is different from tackle, like a lot of women tackle players started with flag.
Mhm.
And so to even see flag blow up in the girl side as it has now, like there were a lot of women's tackle players that weren't even known to play tackle who have children and girls who are now following in their mom's footsteps, playing football, even if it's not tackle yet, or even maybe ever, but like they get to play football.
Mhm.
And now the rest of the world gets to play football. Like to see Australians, like Aussies are playing football, like Switzerland is playing football. Like we were, Switzerland was there, and Great Britain and Germany. Like I didn't even know that there was a men's football league in Germany until I like met some of the women and then kind of got to a deep dive into it. And I was like, wait, they have women's football. Does that mean they have men's football? And like, it's just cool to be able to see an American sport in which like we take pride in and we enjoy and have enjoyed since our childhoods, expanding into the rest of the world to
Yeah,
what
and-
it is today. And
yeah,
like
and
now
it-
they have NFL games overseas and all those types of things. It's really cool.
Yeah, and into women, I think that's awesome. Where can people find knockout games or support you guys around here?
So our New York Knockout women's tackle football is on Facebook. And on Facebook, you can see our schedule for all of our games. You can see all of our fundraising events. This year, our home opener is April 27th. All our home games are at LaSalle High School, and they are all at 5 p.m. for the most part, unless
What day
something
of the week
happens
did
within
you say
the
that?
season.
What-
They are on Saturdays.
Saturdays?
Yes. So they're Saturday evenings, 5 o'clock at LaSalle High School, and our first home opener is against our rivals, who we beat in regular season and then lost in playoffs too by an extra point, which was disappointing, very disappointing. I think more disappointing for me just because I had to be on the sideline watching it instead of being able to participate in it.
Would you have been the one kicking it?
I would have been the
Yeah,
one
that's
kicking
even
it.
worse.
Yeah.
Because you're like, you. You had the feeling I have when I watch NFL games and I watch kick or miss, and you're like, I could have done that.
Yeah. And so it's going to our home opener this year is against Maine Mayhem, who have been our rivals and are definitely our rivals going in this year. And that's also going to be a charity game for us. So that's going to be a fundraiser event for us. One of our teammates, Mary, is battling cancer right now. And so this game is going to be dedicated to raising money for her and her funds and for her medical needs. And her two boys are playing sports and they're very active. In fact, her oldest just, I believe, got an invite to states for wrestling.
Awesome.
Yeah, which is really cool. So we want to be able to help her out in any way possible and her family. She does so much for us. As someone in, like, even before she got diagnosed, she in the background was doing so many things for us, and she has not stopped even through all of it. And so we want to be able to give back to her. So that would be April 27th at 5:00.
Shout out Mary.
Shout out Mary.
Yeah.
Upstate New York is just too small. It's always too small. Yeah, Mary is Jordan Sam's cousin's wife. Yeah.
Mary and Mike.
Yeah.
Mike's her husband.
Yeah.
I remember them.
Yeah.
Small world.
Wow.
Too small.
Small world. We literally talked about freaking Josh Guys. Like,
Yeah,
we played in the same
You
tournament.
guys have the same T-shirt, remember?
right. So no, I really don't mind growing up in a small town.
Yeah.
Because even then, like, Capital District is bigger, way bigger than Scotia, and it's even still small.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be there, Paul.
Wild.
Or we'll be to one of them.
Yeah, we'll
say it
definitely.
now.
Are you gonna get to play it all this season?
Well, that's the plan.
Okay.
I potentially get clearance mid-April.
So potentially could be playing in that game.
Potentially could see some minutes in that game. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely, if we can't get to that one, we will definitely get to one for sure. LaSalle's not that far from where I live, so I'll be there.
I may have dinos alive that day.
I may go to juniors and pregame.
But we'll be doing game.
we do post game at juniors too.
Perfect. I love that place.
Paul will be there before and after.
Yep. Shout out my guys bartending there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, that is your spot, Paul.
that is my spot. I love that place.
Alaina, thanks for doing this, though. This is a blast.
thanks for
man.
having me,
I
yeah.
appreciate it. Anything else you want to plug before we jump off?
I don't think so.
How much money would you need to take a Kimbo Slice hit if he was still alive like that? Like I did it for 100.
When that video came out, I would have done it probably for less than 100. Now, way more. Way more.
I do the Jordy airline ticket. A hundo.
800's
The
good.
Jordy airline. No, I do more, dude. Fuck that.
Yeah, I don't have health insurance. So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
People listening, Jordan's not an employee of the gym, so I'm not letting him go without health insurance.
I think
God, you just put the pressure on me. I'm like, now I feel responsible to get Jordy's here working.
Mike,
And
it's
I
got
has no health
nothing to do with you.
insurance.
No.
I feel like
You're good.
I need to do something now.
You're good.
it's really hard to say because I pay to get hit right now.
Yeah, like you pay to get like hit. Yeah.
Right. Like I do it for enjoyment.
That's like Division III football players. Like we do it for they do it for
Right.
enjoyment.
Can
Right.
you text Sam, say cancel Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, our Target order for tomorrow? I gotta get Jordy health insurance.
He'll be all right. Jordy, if you need some help, I'll help you on the marketplace.
I've made it through.
Yeah.
Made it through. I'm okay.
But yeah, when that video came out, I definitely would have done it for 100 or less because I probably was like 20 when that came out. Now, a lot more money.
Well, I mean, between inflation, what I think I would like need if I did get hurt, but balance that with the fact that I would actually enjoy it. Like, I don't know. It's
and
hard to
also
say.
like I would brace myself way better than that fucking kid did.
Yeah.
I played football. Like I would know how to at least take
They
the
give him
hit.
a chip block off the line. They
He's
throw
just
it up
running
so
blind,
high.
running blind. Just
I feel like it also helps, like, we know what we're talking about. Like, I don't know if that kid knew what he was getting himself into
No
in
clue.
that
No way.
scenario.
Good point.
no, that kid was taken off the couch after playing a round of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2
Right.
Like, you want $100? Sure.
on a PlayStation 3, by the way.
Oh, well, everybody, yeah. Jordan, what do people have to YouTube to find what you looked at?
I googled Kimbo Slice football tackle.
What did I Google? I'll
That'll
tell
do
you.
it.
Kimbo Slice tackle challenge is what I got, and it's the
We'll
first
get you
YouTube
there.
video.
We'll end on that. Everybody give that a search and see what we're laughing at. But thanks, Alaina. I appreciate it. This was great.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll catch everybody next time. Thank you.